I call this meeting of the General Forum for August 26, 2024 to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we please have the roll call?
Mr. Balachandran?
Here.
Mr. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Herndon? Mr. Kassab?
Here.
Ms. Krishnan Kuti?
She's got it right there.
Ms. Krishnan Kuti?
He's on.
And she said here, but we didn't hear.
Okay. Mr. Myers?
Present.
Mr. Portney?
Here.
Mr. Bernier?
Here.
Mr. Best?
Here.
Mr. Frank?
Here.
Ms. Mariner? Ms. Trainer?
Here.
Mr. Heller?
Here.
Mr.
Here.
Patterson? Ms. Stevens?
Here.
Ms. Strickland?
Here.
Mr. Thompson?
Here.
Mr. Beck? Ms. Hartle?
Here.
Ms. Perkins? Mr. Piper? Mr. Cervello?
Here.
Mr. Hammeister?
Present.
Mr. Hardin?
Here.
Mr. Lord?
Present.
Ms. Moriarty?
Here.
Mr. Wilson?
Here.
Mr. Abrams?
Here.
Ms. Tchaikovsky?
Here.
Mr. Magruder?
Here.
Ms. Robb?
Here.
And Ms. Whitman. Mr. Chair, get the meeting back to you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda are public comments. Are there any public comments? I see a hand here. Would you come up to the podium, please?
Thank you for acknowledging me, and good evening to you members of the General Forum. My name is Laura Danini, and I live in Ferguson Township in Ward 1, the West End. My home is served by the Rock Spring Water Company. And before your regulatory minds go, why is she here? There's a relationship between Rock Spring Water Company's service and fire protection in the center region. Specifically, the fire hydrants in the West End do not work due to the condition of the water system in West Ferguson Township. Of interest, when individuals contact the PUC, which is one of the two state regulatory bodies that have purview over this entity, we have been told in writing, in letters, and in phone calls that indeed the PUC does not think that they have jurisdiction over the water company. This has happened on multiple occasions and is in writing on the PUC letterhead. They do have jurisdiction. They've been involved in actions regarding Rock Spring Water Company. When I learned of the most recent episode of an individual trying to make an informal complaint to the PUC and being told that they did not have jurisdiction, I began to dig a little bit into how little jurisdiction they did or did not have. And in fact, any of you can go to the PUC website and download the annual reports of the Rock Spring Water Company going back as far as 2008. And I did do that, and I collated some data in regard to such. And the important finding that I have seen is that, and I will share this data with you after my time here through Mr. Binkley. The important thing that that data showed is that even though after 2013 action that was started by the Office of the Consumer Advocate in the Attorney General's office, even though after that 2013 action, the Rock Spring Water Company did begin to bifurcate their data on gallons sold by residential and commercial, which have two different rate structures. Although they began to bifurcate the data by gallons sold, what they neglected to do was bifurcate the income from that data. And so what you have when you look at the table is an inability, based on the data presented from Rock Springs Water Company, to the best of my understanding, after spending a lot of time with it and having several others also look at it, it does not appear that the data for revenue from commercial gallons sold is available. And if that is not available, the PUC is unable to determine if the rate structure is being applied properly because it no longer is a simple division. So why am I here? I'm wrapping up, and thank you for the license. I'm here to ask each and every one of you to please look at the materials that I send through Mr. Binkley when I send it to you, and consider in your own municipality, through this general forum, consider writing a letter to whomever you think is most appropriate to please look into this data and to help us in the West End get the $12 million that we need to fix this system. And I'm going to wrap up with one passage that is done in the very first condition report handed out at the so-called church meeting when we learned our fire hydrants no longer worked. In summary, the water distribution is marginally sufficient for water supply purposes. This was in 2008. The system does not provide adequate fire protection according to NFPA and ISO standards. Large parts of the distribution system are reaching their useful life and will require replacement in the next 5 to 10 years. Now, when you hear of all the boil water notices from broken pipes that are sieves, letting all kinds of materials into our drinking water, you understand why. Please help us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which are our new agenda items.
Ms. Rob?
Oh,
I thought you were going to ask Ms. Rob.
okay, I can do that now. All right,
Before
so,
we leave public comment.
all right, we'll introduce Pam Robb. She has an issue she wants to discuss with us.
Just as a public notice, Patton Township and the Happy Valley Business Association will be doing their Children's Safety Fair on Saturday, September the 14th, 2024, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Colonnade Target parking lot. We would like for participation from our communities coming together, especially bring your children out. They'll have a bouncing house. They'll have the fire ladder rides. I think drug awareness trailer, goodbye grab bags. There's a flyer on that table. There's so much for the kids. They have workshops. They have the identification for kids. It's a family affair. We truly ask our colleagues from the different municipalities to bring your families and enjoy. Each year it gets bigger and bigger, and families enjoy, especially for the younger kids. Bring them, because by the time they go through, they are tired and want to go to bed. So enjoy having that freedom of quiet. So thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let's go to new agenda items. Again, does anybody have any new agenda items? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to introductions, where I will introduce Ben Estelle as the next Executive Director of the Center Region Council of Governments. And we have a brief statement from Centrise Martin on the, I believe, the process for screening and selecting the candidate. So I'll turn it over to you, Centrise.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll keep it brief. I just wanted to say on behalf of the Center Region Council of Governments Executive Director Search Committee, which was comprised of the State College Borough Manager Tom Fontaine, the Harris Township Manager Mark Bokel, as well as David Piper, elected official of Half Moon Township, College Township elected official Dustin Best, as well as Betsy Whitman, Patton Township elected official, and also Center Region managers, and of course the general forum at large. We just want to extend a warm welcome, and we're excited to have you and your leadership here with 20 years of municipal management experience, and after hearing all the remarkable things that you did in the borough of Dormont, we are looking forward to working with you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, especially Centrise, for helping through that process. I'm very much looking forward to working with each and every one of you. Once get it a little settled in, I will try to schedule some time to make my way through each of the communities individually, to spend some more time, learning about your communities from you, and I really look forward to working with all of you. This has been a great first day, and hopefully we'll have many more just like that. Thank you.
Thank you. And also on behalf of the COG staff and the General Forum members, I would like to recognize and thank Adam Broombaugh for his work in having served the COG as interim executive director.
Thank you. It's very kind. I just want to say it's actually been a very good experience. And I will also say that you do have a wonderful staff that is working on your behalf here at COG. And I know that in combination with Ben's leadership, I think that you'll see some great things here over the next number of years. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to serve in this capacity. And yeah, Mike, I'm looking forward to getting back. So keep the chair warm. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. We're on the consent agenda. I believe there are two parts to this.
Yes.
Consent agenda items CA-A1 and CA-A2 as listed on the general form consent agenda A. And what you've seen the consent agenda. Does anybody need to take or want to make a motion to take anything off of the consent agenda as it's written? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion which reads as follows, that the general form approve items CA-A1, CA-A2 as listed on the August 26, 2024 general form consent agenda -A. I'm sorry. Second. Denny, second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Oh, sorry about
As a
that.
Halloween baby, I like to see that Halloween would be celebrated on Halloween. That's always a good thing.
Thank you. Having a motion and a second, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Consent agenda B is the next item. It consists of CA-B1, Oak Hole Park Water Line Lease Agreement, CA-B2, Patton Township Maintenance Request for Burnell Road Park. And Half Moon Township would abstain from this motion, but the motion reads as follows, that the general form approves items CA-B1 and CA-B2 as listed on the August 26, 2024 general form consent agenda -B. Do I hear a motion? Okay. Do I hear a second?
This is Patty, I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And I will abstain. Any nays? The ayes have it. Okay, next on the agenda is letter of support for community solar. Adam and Pam will present.
Yes, Pam Adams is with us here at some point.
She's up
Oh,
there.
there she is. I'm sorry, looking right at you, Pam. Sorry about that. But via the Climate Action and Sustainability Committee, discussion was held at their last committee meeting about the appropriateness of forwarding a letter to our state legislators encouraging the adoption of any type and variety of legislation that would assist in the encouragement of and allowing members or of the public to sign up for community solar type projects. So that was forwarded by the Sustainability Committee, Climate Action Sustainability Committee, went to the Executive Committee, and it now appears before you. In the past, there has been discussion, there have been some situations where questioned the appropriateness of making those types of requests as kind of generic, general solicitation of other elected officials on behalf of the COG. We actually have adopted a process back in 2021 that addresses the sequencing and the process by which the COG can in fact consider that type of, and this type of a motion or a recommendation. And it does meet that criteria that had been previously established, and thus it appears before you this evening. So if there are any details that are needed, I'm sure that Pam may be able to chime in with some of those, but from a process standpoint, this is ripe for consideration here tonight by the General Forum.
Are there any questions? Go ahead, Matt.
Just a comment, being part of the Climate Action and Sustainability Committee, I just want to thank Pam and the others that authored this for also including historical information, the references back and why we've been in support of this for a long period of time. And I think that adds to the case for backing this. My only comments, thank you.
I have a comment. And I said this in executive committee. Personally, I believe that these kinds of things are best left to the elected municipal boards for consideration to present letters to state legislators, as well as any individual. When it comes to the COG as an agency, I personally do not agree that it's the appropriate thing for the COG to present this kind of a letter because I consider it to be a form of lobbying, and the COG represents 6 municipalities. So everything that they present represents 6 municipalities. Not all the municipalities, I believe, not all of the people in the municipalities agree with the approach. But as a agency or an unelected agency, of course we are elected, but I believe it's best left to the elected officials of each of the municipalities to make a decision. So there's 2 motions in the packet, and one is to send a letter from the COG to the state legislators, and then there's another motion to ask the municipalities to do the same thing. One of those I agree with, the other one I don't. I just wanted to make that point clear. Go ahead.
I actually had the same comment, but again, I'll just agree with your second. One of them I agree with, one of them I don't. I think we probably have opposite agreements and disagreements, but because I do believe that this entity, if the majority agrees that this is essentially the 7th letter that would go out to the entities, and that the second motion, who cares? Everybody, I prefer to recommend to the people that are already here to make a letter. I don't see the point in that.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Go ahead, Evan.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move the first motion here. The general form is recommended by the Climate Action and Sustainability Committee, and the Executive Committee approved that the COG send a letter of support to the region senators for the Senate to pass bipartisan legislation defined in HB 1842 to increase equitable access to and usage of solar energy in Pennsylvania.
Ms. Omari, I'll second.
We have a motion and second. Any questions? Any comments?
Yeah, I question.
Did you just say we should do it as individuals, and that's what you agreed to, and then that motion's the one that says the general forum?
One is for
There's
the
2 of
COG to
them.
do it. The second one was for individuals.
This motion is for the COG to send a letter.
Oh,
to the
okay, so if we want to do individuals, we vote no for this one, is what you're
The
saying?
next.
You can vote. You can vote any way you want on either on both of them. It's not either or. It's both. In other words, you can vote the way you want on either one of these motions.
Oh, well,
Go ahead, Evan.
Yeah, just for a point of clarification in my mind, I think that there's 2 different tracks here, and we can go down both tracks. One track is for COG to make this recommendation, which is why I moved the motion, and I think the second track is to have individual municipalities do the same thing. Whether or not we recommend to the municipalities to do it, or they do it on their own, is kind of moot. Because if this passes, I think the individual municipalities will do it on their own anyway. So that's why I moved the first one, and I think that it is important for COG to make a statement of support. COG has made statements of support for an innumerable amount of issues over the years with one voice, and I don't think this is any different than that. And I think we need to get behind what it says here, to increase equitable access to and usage of solar energy in Pennsylvania. So it allows people who don't have access to this to be able to get it. And I don't see anything more important for us to do as an entity to make that recommendation.
Okay, you've made the motion, and we have a second. I'm sorry, you have a question.
What exactly are we speaking about when we speak about equitable access?
Well, you have to get the report from the committee. They can talk about what that means, because they've talked about that. And they've
Pam, do you want to
submitted-
answer that question? Thank you.
Yep. So basically, community solar allows people who currently wouldn't have the ability for their roof to have solar. So if you are living in an area with lots of trees like Park Forest, you could subscribe to community solar. Or if you're a renter, it would allow you to choose to subscribe to a small solar array. It's like 5 megawatts is what the Pennsylvania legislation is considering, which is like the size of the UAJA. Or if you don't have enough money for the upfront cost to put solar on your roof, you could subscribe to solar. So that's what it's trying to explain, like it's more accessible to more people.
Thank you.
Now, there was a question I have, Pam, and you can answer this one for me. There is something in the letter that refers to the instance where, or I guess, circumstance where property does not support the use of solar. What does that mean, more specifically?
So that means if your roof is covered with shade, that's what that means, is if you live with a lot of trees, your property is not suited for solar. That's what that means.
It makes no reference to any kind of code restrictions or anything like that?
Nope.
Or use of property or things like that?
No, it has nothing to do with code or zoning.
Okay.
And so that word is maybe, it can be interpreted differently, but it's just, the roof is not suited for solar because it's covered with too much shade.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and second. Any other questions? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? I am opposed. Motion number 2. Does anyone like to make that motion? Please read the motion.
This is Matt Heller, and I move that the general forum, as recommended by the Climate Action and Sustainability Committee and Executive Committee, recommends that the individual municipalities of the Center Region send a letter of support to the region senators for the Senate to pass bipartisan legislation defined in HB 1842 to increase equitable access to and usage of solar energy in Pennsylvania.
This is Josh Bortney. I'll second that motion.
You're going to second, Josh? Okay, are there any questions on the second motion?
I'd just like to state that it's empowering, and I think every municipality can use the draft to duplicate. They can use the draft letter that's been sent in our packets, so it makes it easier for our staff. So I appreciate the work of COG in preparing this.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I am also opposed on this motion. But the ayes have it. Pardon?
Did you ask for the nays? You just asked for the ayes.
I'm sorry.
There's
Let's do it. Let's do it again. Sorry, I thought I said, but okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
nay.
Nay. So how many do we have? How many nays do we have?
4.
Okay.
Patterson, Lord.
Okay, 4 nays. Sorry about that, Bruce. Got a little ahead of myself. Okay. Item number 8. Center Region Code Administration Vehicle Purchase Budget Amendment by Walt Schneider.
Good evening. I'm before you this evening to request a budget amendment for the Center Region Code Administration to purchase 2 vehicles. Earlier this year, we made a vehicle purchase for the plug-in hybrid Escapes. When we made that purchase, we found that due to cost increases and basically market issues, the cost of the vehicles were much higher than we originally had anticipated and budgeted. So we exhausted what was budgeted in this year's budget. At the time, we had discussions with finance and finance had recommended at that point in time that we kind of back up with respect to the 2 additional vehicles that we're in need of. One is another plug-in hybrid Escape that's used for the new fire and life safety inspectors / firefighters that are going to be hired hopefully here during the month of September. We're close to making offers, which we're excited about. The other is for a pickup truck to be used with the SEO function. Many times when we're doing perk testing or we're doing test pits, we're going off into undeveloped lots, need additional ground clearance and additional equipment that needs to be carried that's really not suited to be carried in, an enclosed vehicle as much as, it's dirty, it's heavy, it's, we've got digging equipment and so on that needs to be carried in the back of a pickup truck is much more suited for that. And so we are requesting a budget amendment in front of you. The cost of the budget amendment is $98,000. It would be coming out of our existing capital fund balance, and there's more than enough in that to be able to cover that expense. And I would be happy to answer any questions you might have regarding this. Yes. Yes.
Walter, the prices that are in here, are they a budgeted price based on like the maximum? Like, are you going to get pricing through CoStar's?
We'll use CoStar's pricing. The pricing that is in here, we've already solicited requests for pricing prior to requesting the budget amendment so that we come in within the anticipated cost.
Okay, thank you. So there's a motion here, and would someone like to make?
I did have a question as well.
I'm sorry, Gopal, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't know how to raise my hand, so, but anyways, I'm kind of wondering about, maybe you might do this and I just missed it, but why is it that the truck that you're purchasing there is a non-hybrid truck? Why not have an electric truck or a hybrid truck? Did you go through that already? If you did, I apologize for.
No apologies necessary. I did not do that this evening. So myself, as well as Pam Adams, who I'm happy to have on, both independently did an analysis to look at the cost-benefit analysis of an electric vehicle or a hybrid vehicle that would suit those needs. And we independently came together and said, when I requested that she do that analysis, she came back to me and basically said that her analysis didn't show a benefit to doing that. Mine likewise did not either. And so again, while we're very committed to looking at renewable resources and looking forward that way, we just don't feel that the technology is there and that the cost benefit is there from a fiduciary responsibility to the region to buy a hybrid truck. We don't feel that we'd ever pay or get the benefit out of it.
Is it that the hybrid truck and the electric trucks are just way more expensive than $55,000?
Yes,
Is that what it is?
about $12,000 more.
Okay, but I mean, is there like savings in terms of fuel costs? I'm sure you like the analysis, but.
And when we did the analysis, there's not a significant fuel savings to pay it back. So we just did not feel that the life cycle cost was going to pay it back. And
I think the big factor in the pickup truck is its use.
Yes.
You're going to be on a lot of roads carrying loads. You're going to be going up you're going to be on some pretty rough areas. And my experience with hybrids is they don't do well. And they don't really perform. You're on the engine. In other words, you're on the gas engine, which are typically underpowered.
Correct.
So. Go ahead, Mike.
So we did take it into account and just didn't feel that the benefit was there.
I was the dissenting vote on the finance committee because we went through this in March and we said no then, And I have no idea what's changed in 3 or 4 months. Now we come back with a different proposal to make this budget change again. We said then that they could live within their budget for the year. Now we're going to say, oh, well, we didn't really mean it in March. So I was very much against this because I think why not wait till January when you got a new budget and you have new money for it? You know, and they said, well, they're self-funded, they're an enterprise. You know, it's not coming from the COG budget, but it comes from taxpayers. Our taxpayers pay the fees for the permits and everything that fund this. So I don't think we need to do this. And as far as hybrids and torque, I disagree. I've driven too many of them. They're much perkier, much faster, much more torque than the regular gasoline engines. I would disagree with you on that one. So, but anyway, I'm going to put my 2 cents in again. I don't think we need to do this. I think we had this discussion in March, and I don't see anything change. We can wait till January.
Pam?
Being on the Public Safety Committee and working closely with Walt and with Sean, to wait would be a mistake. There are no guarantees that we're going to come out with the same price. What's been going on year after year is we get to a point, then the company will call and cancel that order. We have to move on this. This is 2 years down the line. And we keep going backwards. The money is there. We need those vehicles for those officers, those code officers coming in, code and fire. And to wait on it another couple of months, there are no guarantees that the company is going to have that particular trucks and vehicles available. We have to move on this and stop dragging our feet because we don't think it's going to be better down the line. We have had orders canceled over and over and over again. So if we can just move on this as chair of public safety and safety of our communities, stop dragging our feet and let's move forward.
Thanks, Pam. And Elliot has a comment.
I agree with Pam. And another thing is, if these employees are starting in a month or two, are they just supposed to sit around with no vehicles until January? That doesn't make any sense at all. And so I think that 2 things should be done. One is we should make this purchase, but 2, if we want to come up with another way of purchasing these vehicles, whether it's not using co-stars or whatever method we want, let's study that this year and come up with a new proposal. We have plenty of time for that, but we don't have plenty of time to get for the new employees coming in.
Thank you. And
I'm on the Public Safety Committee, and I voted yes for the vehicles, but the only reason why I voted yes, and I want to make this very clear, the only reason why I voted yes is because we just decided at that point in time that we were going to talk about better vehicles, better and cheaper vehicles, ones that will last longer, because I don't believe that the vehicles that I voted for are the ones that I would ever purchase. And I mean, I guess that's one of the things I wanted to make very clear. Another thing I want to make very clear is I went to the PSATS conference. I went up to the co-stars, people there, the representatives of co-stars there, and I asked them, because I had heard here, and I don't know a lot about co-stars, so fair enough. So I asked them, I said, is there any problem getting vehicles? They flat out denied any issue, any way, with us being able to get vehicles through co-stars. So I don't know who to believe at this point, because I'm new at this, first of all, and second of all, if I go to co-stars, they're telling me one thing, so I don't want to feel like I'm being hijacked, my vote's being hijacked because someone tells me that there's no way to get these vehicles when the other people say this. And again, like I said, I voted for these vehicles, and I will vote for them again tonight, but I want to make sure that we are doing better with our money in the future, because I'll tell you what, a Toyota is a lot more reliable and a lot cheaper than what we're looking at tonight. So, thank you.
Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just had a question. What changed from Frank had indicated that in March, there was a vote not to do this, and now there's a recommendation, heartfelt recommendation to do it now. What's changed? Walt, you've...
So I have a response to that. So in the meetings in March, we came to finance and we had a discussion regarding the purchase of vehicles, and we were, I don't want to say short, but we were short on what we needed to purchase all the vehicles that we had requested under the program plan and what we were anticipating purchasing this year. The recommendation that we had at that meeting was, and the feeling was that that discussion was rushed with regards to the budget amendment piece. The recommendation at that point was to purchase the vehicles that we were able to purchase within our budget. And if we are going to request a budget amendment, that we should come back with that budget amendment request and not rush because of the fact we didn't make it through the proper cycling. We actually had gone to finance directly as compared to going to public safety at that point, just due to schedule and availability of the vehicles that we had, arranged and found. So at that point in time, we took the recommendation that we had and we purchased the vehicles that we were able to purchase and felt that we would come back with a budget amendment. The original discussion was to come back in June based on other committee activities. We did not come back in June. Public safety did not meet in July. And so we went to both public safety and finance in August so that we did this in a proper order and we didn't get it out of order. And so that both committees had the ability to weigh in on the purchase and the budget amendment request as compared to it only being finance making a recommendation without public safety's input.
Where is he? Oh, okay. John Hayes, do you have a question or comment?
So, I think part of the issue with a lot of this technology is it's moving so fast and the market is changing very quickly. But I will also tell you, as the driver of electric vehicle, the maintenance cost is extremely low compared to an internal combustion engine. So when we're doing these kind of life cycle calculations, the devil's in the details, right? It's all based on the assumptions you make on current fuel prices versus future fuel prices versus maintenance contracts. And so we can only operate on a best good faith estimate of what those are. But, I look at that spreadsheet that came up and see numbers that on the maintenance, even if we're not getting it back on fuel, we might still be getting it back on the maintenance, given the duty cycle of these vehicles. So we could kick the can down the road, but at some point we just need to either, well, I won't use the famous LBJ phrase on what we should do, but we should either make a decision or, I think we need to stop kicking the can down the road.
I have a question. Has anybody compared pricing between CoStars and the market?
So the advantage to CoStars over the market directly is the timing. If we go directly to the market, we get into a advertisement and a bid situation, and many of the vehicles, in discussing this with dealers and so on, they're very reluctant because they can sell the vehicle before our closing of all of the advertisement and bid requirements that would normally be the case.
But let's say you're buying 7 at a time or
Yes.
10 at a time. Could you not get a price from a dealer to get 10 of them and compare that to the CoStars price, or aren't you allowed to do that? Or is
Yes,
there some
we can.
reason why you can't do that?
We can do that. Quite honestly, most of the CoStars, the dealer that we have been working with most recently is getting these off the lot and then doing a CoStars price on them, as compared to having to go through a traditional bidding process that would take us upwards of 2 months.
Okay, the other question I have is, have you considered the difference in price between the plug-in hybrids and standard hybrids?
Yes.
And
one of the advantages we have with the plug-in hybrids, while they're more expensive, most of the time our staff is not driving 40 miles a day, or if they are, it's just slightly over, and so they're running on the electric only. We are actually running, there are times when State College Borough's fueling system, while they've been awesome to deal with, we get a hiccup in every once in a while because the number of miles between filling is so large that the system kind of has a hiccup thinking that something's wrong.
But typically, the difference in cost, it typically takes 7 years to get a payback on plug-in hybrids versus standard hybrid, which I own and have been very happy with. It's well over 10 years old. So, but anyway, just a question, and what I'm getting at is, in terms of staying within the budget, sometimes you got to make decisions that, keeps you within a budget. You don't get everything you want, but try to find a middle ground between full gas, full electric. Sometimes you have to. I'm saying sometimes you should consider, or we should consider, making those kinds of compromises at times. The other thing is there's an infrastructure to support plug-in vehicles as well. And I know on the 2025 program plan, there's a considerable amount of money expected to be spent for additional plug-in stations. So I just wanted to put that out there. But anyway, we're back to, does anybody else have any questions with regard to this issue? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion as listed in the agenda. Would someone make that motion? Please read it.
I'll make the motion, and I'll read it as well.
Okay, Josh.
I move that the general form as recommended by the Executive Committee, Finance Committee, and Public Safety Committee approve a budget amendment of $98,000 utilizing code capital fund balance to purchase replacement vehicles.
Do I hear? Susan seconds. Any other discussion? Go ahead, Dustin.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get a clarification on the motion. So it does seem like a few members have expressed, the idea of gas versus electric, hybrid, et cetera, right? And this motion is very generic. It says replacement vehicles. So in making this motion, are we just saying, okay, you have $98,000 to do with what you need, and hey, if you can find a hybrid vehicle, that'd be great. Or go ahead, is it set in stone that you're buying the gas vehicle, for the F-150?
So with this, we've budgeted in this request a gas vehicle for the F-150 or equivalent and a plug-in hybrid Escape which is consistent with the other fleet vehicles that we purchased recently for the other vehicle.
Right. So then should the motion, I'm just asking, Chair, should the motion be more specific?
Point of order. We have a motion.
I'll withdraw. I can withdraw.
I'm just.
Hang on a minute.
From that perspective, we have a motion. It's time to either amend some monies that were moved to amend the motion.
I agree, and I'll amend
Right.
it to include that.
The issue is, I believe, $98,000 budget amendment consists of a $43,000 plug-in Escape and a $55,000 Ford F-150 standard pickup truck.
I'd respectfully request to make that as or equivalent, because if I can find a different manufacturer that's more economical.
Other than a Ford?
Yes.
Okay. So I think the motion needs to be amended to include an equivalent vehicle, equivalent make, let's say, and...
It doesn't have that at all. It's generic for that reason, so that
That's
staff
correct.
can do the work that, we've gotten feedback.
That's correct.
From other meetings, they're gonna get this.
Right.
Either we want to give them $98,000 or not.
And that's the motion, that's the motion on the table.
And then we'll vote on that.
So, we have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion?
So just say, Mr. Best, if you want to have a motion on top of this motion to do anything else, feel free.
I don't think he does.
Okay.
I think this covers what their intention, what they feel they need to do, so. We have a motion and a second. I'll call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Sergeant, Lord, and Dustin.
Nice.
And you can actually include me too. That's 4,
And the ayes still have it.
for probably a different reason. The ayes still have it. Okay, next up is the modified personnel policy handbook. Becca?
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Becca Pettit, the HR director, and I'm here tonight to talk with you about the personnel policy handbook modifications. So hopefully everybody had some time to flip through that. We know it's a large document, which is why we wanted to get it out to everyone well in advance. I do have a few slides prepared here, and I apologize in advance. I know some of you have already seen this a couple of times, but we want to talk tonight about why we're making these policy modifications, who was involved in the process, the focus of the modifications, what the next steps are, and we'll save some time for questions as well. So why are we making these policy modifications? We had new positions, the fire and life safety inspector firefighter positions that were approved through the 2024 COG budget process. And this is to be prepared and proactive. So these positions, as we've discussed before, are different than any position that COG currently has. They're unique. They're going to work for code, but be shared with fire. Their schedule is different than any position that we currently have at COG, and they're essentially our first paid firefighters. So with that, we know comes the potential for future unionization. Once employees start the process of unionization, whether that's for these positions or anything else at COG, what happens is your policies freeze, they're frozen. So you need to stop with the policies that you have in place. So this is really just proactive to make sure that we have solid policies in place for several reasons, and one of those being to help preserve management rights. So this has been a collaborative effort. Walt Schneider, the code director, Sean Kaufman, the fire director, our previous executive director, and even a little bit our interim executive director, myself, the municipal managers and attorneys at Campbell Durant. We've met on this pretty regularly. The code director, executive director, fire director, and myself had regular weekly meetings all of this year. And then we had the opportunity with the municipal managers to meet with our attorneys at Campbell Durant earlier this year during the PELRAS conference. So we have had legal consultation and review of the policies that we're discussing. So the focus of these modifications really revolved around a few main items. So it's the accrual of holiday and leave time at a higher rate than a regular full-time employee. So most of our full-time employees, or all right now of our full-time employees, are 80 hours every 2 weeks. These positions will be 96 hours, average like 96 hours every 2 weeks, so they're working 20% more. So instead of having an 8-hour holiday or an 8-hour vacation day, they're gonna have a 9.6-hour holiday or vacation day. Preserving managerial rights, that's the rights that the employer has to run their business without interference. So some of these policies just strengthen the language to help preserve management rights. And then Fair Labor Standards Act is a large one. That is the law that governs compensatory time and calculation of overtime. There is a special provision, Section 207K, and that is geared towards law enforcement and firefighter positions. So there are different regulations about when we have to pay overtime for such positions. And then as long as we were at it, we thought, you know, it's been since 2019 that the handbook was adopted, so we just did some general updates and cleanup. We refreshed the logo, added an updated org chart, employee titles throughout the book. Earlier this year, the General Forum adopted a new policy, compensation policy, that explains how the new formula for calculating COLA, the cost of living adjustments, will work. So we were updating that. Juneteenth was added a couple years ago to the COG holiday schedule, so we wanted to make sure that we had updated that as well. And then we made an adjustment to the bereavement leave policy. So again, this slide just highlights, there was in your packets, along with the full employee handbook, we also had highlighted in red the changes that impacted the fire and life safety and firefighter positions, and then in blue, the general cleanup. So what policies were affected for the inspector firefighter positions regarding the accrual of leave time? That would be your sick leave policy, holidays, and vacation policy. And then the policies that were impacted with language to preserve managerial rights were the announcement of vacancies, internal promotion and selection when hiring, employment status, workers' right to know, whistleblower, inclement weather, hospitalization and medical insurance, workers' compensation, volunteering and special leave, drug and alcohol-free workplace. We did already have that policy in place, but we didn't have the medical marijuana, and we were advised to include that, so that is now in there, and disciplinary. And then the policies that were affected regarding FLSA and the special provisions in Section 207K are hours of work, lunch and rest period, overtime and training time, and deductions made from exempt employee salaries. So then over on the right, we have the policies that were impacted with the general cleanup that were not specific to the new positions. Again, the change in COG logo, org chart, titles, where you can find the anti-harassment reps, which are 2 elected officials that serve on the HR committee. We had an update of the COG website, so that moved, and we just wanted to put in, make sure people could find that easily. Earlier this year, we updated the resolution that speaks to the position of executive director, so that resolution number was updated. Compensation policy that we talked about that refers to COLA, the holiday schedule, and bereavement leave. What we changed in the bereavement leave policy is we simply removed the word consecutive, because if people have a qualifying death in their family, they're entitled to up to 5 days of leave time. Right now it says consecutive leave time. COVID really changed that for us, because a lot of times people may need a couple of days if something happens initially to grieve, but they may not be having a memorial service or things until later on. So we really have been honoring, what people need, and we just wanted to memorialize what really is happening in practice. So you'll notice too, there is one thing that's crossed out on this section, and that was remove the unpaid leave of absence. So we were advised by legal counsel that it is not best business practice to have a generalized policy about this. So we had some questions, and we did remove it. We talked about this at the executive committee last week, and the elected officials had some questions too. They were some of the same ones that we had previously, but we really weren't able to speak to that. So since it doesn't impact the inspector firefighter positions, they agreed to leave the unpaid leave of absence in the policy as it is right now currently, and we'll go back and get some clarification for legal and take that back through the HR committee. So you may see this again in the future, but for right now, we are going to leave that in if this body agrees to that. So what the next steps are here with the adoption of these policies, an amended version of the handbook will be shared with staff. We'll collect new acknowledgement forms from staff saying that, that these policies were shared with them. We will get clarification that we just discussed from legal on the unpaid leave policy and kick that back to the HR committee. And staff will continue to work on some standalone policies that will impact the fire inspector firefighter positions, such as light duty, heart and lung, which is a supplemental workers' comp policy, and the Fair Labor Standard Act desk guides. We're working on a couple of those to give some good examples about when overtime does and does not apply. So the takeaways for tonight's presentation is that it was advisable to have these policies in place prior to the hire of the new positions. Final interviews were conducted the first week in August. We know who would like to extend offers to. We're just here before you tonight to get approval to put the policies in place before we extend those offers. They all have had legal review. In summary, the modifications that were made are to create policy for the new positions primarily, strengthen the language to help protect COG's management rights, and outline clear and fair expectations for staff, and to clean up some of the general things in the policy book. So with that, I'll turn it over if there are any questions.
Question.
Sure.
How many positions are we hiring? I believe
4.
4 that caused the changes to the policy.
Yep.
4 positions, okay, thank you.
1 position, 4 people.
Gotcha. Any other questions? Kevin?
One question, and maybe it's somewhere else, but I didn't see anything about your discrimination policy in there. Is there a reason it's not also included for a new employee?
Sure. It's called the anti-harassment policy. That's the policy that has everything about.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Evan.
Yeah, I would like to move this motion that the general forum is
sorry.
recommended by the executive committee.
I'm sorry, Evan, did I miss anybody? Anybody else have a
Well, I'm
question?
making a motion, you can all.
Go ahead.
You can have discussion after.
No, I just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Go ahead, Evan.
So, okay, that the general forum is recommended by the executive committee and human resources committee adopt the COG personnel policy handbook as amended.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? Any comments?
Yeah, just
Go
the
ahead,
9.6 versus the 8, is that a standard practice for fire and safety? Did you say that earlier?
The amount of leave time that they accrue. Yeah, that's a standard practice at COG. For example, we do have some part-timers that accrue leave, but they don't accrue leave at the same rate or as high as what a full-time employee does. So it's prorated for them.
And does the compensation that you're gonna offer, is that 20% higher than somebody that works 80 hours a week, or is it not, and that's why they've got to get 25%?
That's a good question. It is, but it's the same rate. They're in the same salary band, but they're going to earn more simply because they work more hours. So same hourly rate, but they're working more hours, so their paycheck will be more than somebody that has an 80-hour paycheck in the fire and life safety and inspector positions.
Okay, let me repeat back what I think I heard, or
Yeah.
summarize what I asked him. So one that is working 96 hours is going to be paid and compensated for 96 hours.
Correct.
And so because they're working 96 hours, they now get 9.6 hours of leave for every 96 hours they work.
No, not for every 96 hours that they work.
It's just part of the, what's that 9.6? It's
The 9.6, so employee will earn 9.6 hours of vacation leave every month.
every month.
Or excuse me, that's not right.
At some period.
Yeah.
Whereas a regular employee earns 80. These 96-hour employees
Are gonna, yes, correct.
Okay, and that's standard practice.
Yes.
Hours.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Any other comments? Okay. We have a motion and second. Call for the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Millbrook Marsh Nature Center Boardwalk Update.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
As Christie takes the podium here, I want to reiterate an item or a memo, a note that is part of the agenda here. Christie is about to provide us with a presentation to stimulate a discussion concerning what's going on with the boardwalk at Millbrook Marsh. This is a step toward eventually getting into a detailed conversation about financing. The presentation tonight is not specifically designed to have that conversation this evening. There are any number of new members of the COG General Forum that have not been present since Christie last presented and updated on the work and the activity surrounding the boardwalk at the Millbrook Marsh. And I, through the Parks Capital and the Center Region Parks and Rec Authority joint meeting, had requested that Christie provide an overview to bring all of us up to speed so that everyone has the same information about the condition that we're dealing with relative to the boardwalk. As a first step in next identifying an appropriate solution to this particular problem, and then leading to the third step, which is the conversation about potential financing or how we would actually pay to accomplish the work. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Christie and take it away.
Thank you, Adam. So really, essentially, as Adam said, I want to take you through a little bit of a history lesson on Millbrook Marsh this evening so that you have a better understanding of what it is we're talking about. If Millbrook Marsh is relatively new to you as an elected official, we're going to open up opportunities here toward the end to come back and actually visit the site with us. We're going to set up some tours. So I brought this little prop here with me on the podium. This is a birdhouse that was constructed. If you can't see it, those of you online, it's actually constructed out of a license plate. Pennsylvania sold these Conserve Wild Resources license plates back in, the program started in 1982, which is about a year after when I was born, so they've been around for a little while. And what's really neat about this is, this is really a replica of how we protect and take care of our resources as citizens and as for elected officials and staff who represent communities like Center Region. It's important that we remember that, we are rooted in Pennsylvania and we are here to protect those resources right here in our land. And so I want to walk you through some of that history so that you kind of have the context to that. And how we can take a resource like the boardwalk, just similar to how we take a resource like building a birdhouse here, and we protect those birds and provide a house for it. We're doing essentially the same thing as we protect and build our boardwalk systems to provide better access and make it a little bit more equitable for our area and our community residents to participate in recreation and explore the outdoors here in busy Happy Valley. So bear with me as I walk you through a little bit of a history lesson. Back in 1997, we actually took over the property and leased this through Penn State University. So our 40-year lease is currently in place through 2064. We have had some discussions with Penn State about extending that lease quite a bit to help live within basically the lifespan of that boardwalk. To try to take care of that resource. There's also a conservation easement on 50 of the 62 acres of the property, and that conservation easement goes through 2032. We work really closely with Clearwater Conservancy. They're a really good partner to us, as well as Penn State University, in providing some resources and some staffing to help us in developing and maintaining this land. So when was the boardwalk built? We're going to go all the way back to 2002. So 2002 was the first section. It was built in 6 sections in total, short sections that they did over a period of time with volunteers from the community and from different community groups to be supporting those efforts. So right now the boardwalk is roughly between 22, 24 years old, depending on what year the different sections were put in. What we're seeing right now is failure in a lot of the older sections, and that's what's leading to these conversations today. But I think it's really to understand a little bit more of the context to where we came from and where we are today. So in 2004 is essentially when a bulk of that boardwalk was built and constructed, and that really provided access out to the bird blind so that you can view the fen. That provided access out toward Puddintown Road and out toward areas like Slab Cabin Park and Spring Creek Park. So that really provided a connection to nature and really a throughway for residents to pass from one community to the next. In 2008, there was a short connector section that was added on to get people from the boardwalk a little bit closer to Puddintown Road. Again, we still have a lot of grass sections that kind of break off that full accessibility, so we do have some limitations on someone with mobility issues or someone in a wheelchair that can actually access the boardwalk. This map highlights the easement for Clearwater Conservancy. So the red line around the outside there is the Clearwater easement, and the blue section to the left is what we consider the farmstead. That's about 12 acres. The Clearwater Conservancy easement is roughly about 50 acres. And then we have a fen that's also included on part of our property. This is a floodway map. Shout out to Center Region Planning Agency for providing us this map. at the last hour to show you a little bit more of the 100-year floodplain. You can kind of see the hashings in red there as far as where the floodwaters go. Obviously, a majority of our existing boardwalk in orange is within that floodway, and it really does provide access to those areas. And the reality is that that boardwalk experiences every single flood that we have on the property, so it's really important how we develop and create the system. Areas in green are the grass. So if you look at this conceptually, you can understand my last comment with the fact that there's a lot of breaks in access to nearway trails and to facilities. So the only way to get to the boardwalk right now is through grass. This goes back to the early part of construction. So this is when the boardwalk was being built. So between 2001, 2002, this is a depiction of how the boardwalk was built. It was constructed through a duckbill system. Had roughly a 15-20 year lifespan, give or take, and obviously we're at that 20-year lifespan right now. These are just some more images of back when the boardwalk was constructed and everything was done, kind of by hand. A few more images. Also, we had some support from the Pennsylvania Conservation Corps volunteers. As you can see, they're dragging the boards across to create the bridges and the access points. And then this is the bird blind. Later down the line in the future, they added on some side rails to the bird blind to make it a little bit more safe. But that's a nicely elevated platform area right now that gives visitors a viewing space out over top of the cat-nine tails. And this is back in 2001. Pictured over to the right is Diane Curley and Donald Paymer. This was a really special picture. They were two huge supporters of ours throughout the Spring Creek Education Building project and the Diane Curley Welcome Pavilion. It's really a pivotal moment of individuals in the community who really saw the vision and the dream of the property to become something more. And this was just when they were starting to build that first section. So back in 2008, this was the connector that was added in. As you can see, the main purpose of the boardwalk is to also provide access even during flood events. So it's really neat actually to be out there after a flood event. You really have a really good educational opportunity for kids to teach a little bit more about stormwater management and how the water filters from our homes down into properties like Millbrook Marsh, which then feeds right downstream to our drinking water. So the environmental impacts, the downed trees, those are all realities at Millbrook Marsh. So as you can see, the boardwalk system has been failing over the last few years. We have actually closed down sections starting in 2020. 3 sections were closed down. We made some pretty significant repairs. We reopened 2 of those, but 1 section remained closed. And then in 2024, we recently closed the section to the bird blind. Here's the section that was closed off to the blind. Like I said earlier, the sections that were built first, we believe are the ones that are failing first, which makes this project more imminent. We understand that, and we're trying to work through a plan to figure out what our next steps are going to be. But the significance of the bird blind here and the bridge that we've closed are pretty big on our programs. We use these as teaching opportunities. We have the confluence where Thompson Run interferes with Slab Cabin Run, and it's a really good moment to explain to kids how water comes together in a different point and how it filters through the marsh. This is a map of the closure. So this shows the entire site and roughly about 615 linear feet of closed sections right now at the marsh. So what we've been doing recently is we completed a phase 1 report back in 21. and then we moved on to the Phase 2 report. This really gave us an opportunity to look at the existing conditions on the land, create some design options, work with committees, members of boards to determine what the best recommendations would be. And then in 2022, the Phase 2 report was moving into final draft phase. I came on board late in 2022, and then into 2023, we started looking into what those different recommendations were out of that report to figure out what the means and the methods were going to be to put some sort of a cost to this thing. Some of you have seen this before. The two preferred methods were different construction methods to help protect our natural resources from the construction. Similar project right now, if you go out to the marsh, you can see the stream bank stabilization work that's happening, and the methods that they're using out there to try to minimize the impact on the marsh. The mud mat option is the preferred method. It's the most cost effective, and we think that that will be a potential option to discuss in the future. This was also part of the feasibility study recommendations, but what this report did was it kind of took it a step further, similar to how you have a park master plan. A park master plan shows you, these are the things that you can build, these are the things that your community desires. Out of the participant surveys, the impact, the feedback that you're getting through that process is really important. So biting off too much right now would be to say that we're going to build all of that. I don't think that that's 100% what we're going to do here. We want to propose in the future what that's going to look like to refine that scope, more realistic to what's affordable. So the areas in orange are what's existing. The red lines are proposed connections that would be enhancements. And then the gray areas also are additional enhancements to provide better access through TSA trails. So here's kind of a quick rundown of the timeline overview from 23 to now and even into 25. The biggest markers we've already kind of discussed, but in 2024, we worked on a readiness assessment with the authority and the advisory, and realized the outcome of that meeting was that a capital campaign of the size that was proposed in the feasibility study was just too much for staff to chew on. So we took some site visits. We looked at different products to source for the boardwalk system. We looked at a concrete system, something a little bit more long-term to expand the lifespan. We hired a park specialist to also specifically oversee Millbrook Marsh maintenance and janitorial, as many of you were part of those conversations, and the need for the oversight on the boardwalk was important. We've got our grand opening of the Phase 2 and the Diane Curley Welcome Pavilion coming up in October. That's a really big project that staff has been working toward. So to take on a major capital project of this size, we need to get out of one project so we can get into the next. And in 2025, we really want to refine that scope of the project, look at the different repair replacement funding options, and then work with an engineer to really cost value this. So that's really kind of where we're at today. The value I wanted to kind of end with on what this really means to Millbrook Marsh. 78% of our programming roughly really is directly impacted by the boardwalk. We do a lot of nature walks, bird watching, educational tours, site visits with school districts, site visits of our own programs, our own summer camps. It's a really significant property, not only for our own programs, but it's a place where people visit all year round. We have people who can have access to this facility all year who want to get out and take a walk in the outdoors. And I picked 2 dates. We'll send these out to you after the meeting, but September 18th and September 20th, please join us. Myself and our staff would like to walk everyone through a brief tour of the boardwalk to talk a little bit more about some of these things that I touched on today, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
ahead, Bruce.
Two-part. Do we know the cost of the original boardwalk construction? And how much of it was paid by grants or donations?
Not off the top of our head. I know that Melissa and I have pieced through numerous file folders to figure out what the cost was. 20,000 here and there each time. So you could take that 20,000, maybe multiply that by 6 to get a rough average. But nowhere near what, the cost is going to be today, in today's dollars. But there were definitely grants applied for. There were several grants and donations. There was a fundraising campaign that was done to raise funds for different sections of the boardwalk along the way.
Sorry.
This isn't a question, but the Thompson Run is very important educationally because it's named after Moses Thompson, who owned a lot of the land around here in the early 1800s. And in 1850, the iron industry in this area was second only to Manchester, England, in its production. And so that's an important aspect. That's just not far away from this site.
Absolutely.
I think I'm more on that question.
So going back to, you mentioned it was kind of original, what's that original lease amount? From
40 years with Penn State.
Sorry, the amount, is it like a $1 lease or something? Or is it?
Yeah, $1, yes.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
And then, were there any commitments in that lease? Meaning, we will commit to the following X number of things. Is there anything about that in the lease?
I wasn't here for those conversations, but what I've learned through the history of the lease, Melissa can kind of attest to this too, is that the relationship that originally began between Penn State University did have some exchange of support and helping to construct some things, but to what degree, I can't really speak to that. I don't have all of those facts. I don't know if Julian knows those facts either. Looking over him.
So, okay, so there's nothing in the lease
Correct.
that committed COG to doing anything with that land. We just leased it for $1. And so that's, yes?
Correct.
Okay, great. So then, I guess what I'm hearing is, for the last question, I just want to summarize that you think there's probably 6 phases, there's $20,000 maybe that COG spent, and maybe there's some other funds kind of cobbled together. No one really has that information to what's here type of thing, so we.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of loose history that we actually just recently went through. We had a series of boxes that we pulled out to really try to understand that. And what I really learned was there were a lot of grants, there were a lot of volunteers, there was a lot of manpower from CRPR at the time. Some of those images actually included some of our staff, so it was a culmination of several partnerships to really make that happen.
Another question here.
If I may.
A couple of different things came to mind. One, I appreciate the presentation here, really puts us all on the same page. Two, I like how we've listed out what we expect to happen, over the next year or two. But my question is, what I'm hoping tonight can really foster is the how. Can we all come together for this conversation collectively? Because I've heard in the past a lot of conversations where, we met with Penn State, or we met with Clearwater, and then we met with, and everybody's getting pieces of information. And every time I see a $6 million fee or budget, dollar amount on a budget, I go, okay, that's a deeper conversation. And I'm hoping we can put our arms around all the stakeholders and collectively arrive at how we're going to come up with a solution for this. So I guess that's maybe a challenge for us, and hopefully tonight we can go ahead and move forward with that. I have concerns about maybe some of the hydroclimatological data that I expect or that I've been seeing in future climate models of this area, so that how do we build something that's going to last for the years to come, knowing that we might have more significant flooding events, etc. So having us at the table, a deeper conversation, I think would be welcome. So, thank you for this.
Josh, go ahead.
So you say that 78% of our educational programs are at the Millbrook Marsh Nature Center. So I know that's mostly the school district. Are they compensating us, and pardon me, I haven't looked at the budget, so how much revenue are we getting from the school district for those educational programs? And is it significant enough to support such a capital program, and can we work that into the budget of how we, because I want to see, it's great to see students benefit from this, but I also want to see that we have a return on our investment before we, and I know this is a further conversation to talk about funding. I don't want to express my view now, but I'm just saying, is there a large enough dividend from the school district, or what is it?
So I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but I can tell you that we do charge for school visits and for our guided programs. A majority of our programs are offered, through summer camps, general programming. It's not just, educational visits from the schools. We really stretch pretty far out there with the participants that we bring in. So when we talk about the facility as a regional facility, it really does draw in a lot of participants throughout the region. And we're always looking to recover our costs. We have cost recovery matrix right now for our programs. And so for a program that we're gonna run that includes staffing, sure, we are recovering those costs. But to subsidize an investment of this size through just programming is very challenging. I think that's when we look into alternative funding sources, just like we would a park where we're building playgrounds and trails throughout that park. That's a resource to the community that we're providing that doesn't necessarily have a revenue on the other end because we're a nonprofit. That's not our focus. We're a community-based organization trying to provide a resource to the community. I don't know if you want to speak to any.
Just to follow up on that, from a management perspective, I think that Parks and Rec does a very credible job in terms of cost recovery on the programs. And I think Christie's alluded to that already. There's no comparison here relative to the potential investment that might need to be made in making these repairs. There's no way for those programs to make up a significant portion of the funding that would be required here.
In no way was I at all criticizing. I know that their cost recovery is excellent, and because of how enriching the programs are. So I appreciate all of your work. I just want to also look at it from that perspective. And I understand that, but when we're talking, and again, I don't want to get too much into it, but when we're talking about funding sources, I think we should get creative and ask our state partners and federal partners too for funding sources. But that's a different conversation for a different night, and we all want to potentially move on.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, next up is the university report. Mr. Morales.
All right, thank you very much. I'll be brief, just a couple updates. Obviously, school has started. In case you haven't been around campus, our students have fully moved in. Today was the first day of classes, so we're really excited about that. It is also game week, so rah, rah. So just a couple things for you, just some updates on our enrollment for this fall with our first year class. So I don't have the official breakdown. That will come once we take a census shot in the fall, so after the ad drop. But we fully expect to land within 9,400 to 9,500 first-year students, which was anticipated. We saw an increase in students at UP across all market segments, so in-state, out-of-state, and internationally, so it's spread across the three. And again, if you have specific questions, I'm more than happy to try to answer them, but that's kind of a snapshot of where we are currently with our first year students. Again, I'll have more information on total enrollment, which I know is important to a lot of you here shortly as we matriculate through the fall. Also of note, our East Halls project is finally completed with, I believe, 3 or 4 dormitories coming back online this fall. So that was a long time coming, but we're excited for that. It limits our reliance on supplemental housing, especially for this year. So I think at this point, we have pretty much the most amount of housing available on campus that we've had in previous years. So, And this was arrival dates, which was last week, so you don't have to worry about that. But that's all I have, I think. Does anybody have any questions for me? I know it's getting late. No? Going once? Twice? All right. Thank you very much.
Next up on the agenda is State College Area School District report. Is there a report from the school district? Not. Okay, then we move to the executive director's report.
2 items very quickly. Direct your attention to the August activity report. Number 1. Number 2, there are a myriad of memorandums of record that are appended to the agenda item, many of which basically involved a lot of activity involving the executive director and your agencies throughout the past month. So I would direct your attention to those 2 items. Mr. Chair, that's all that I have this evening.
Thank you. Next up, agency director reports.
I think our first will be Ms. Kim McMullen for a brief status update on the 2025 COG budget.
Hello, good evening, everyone. The budget is well underway. We have a deadline of later this week with the agency directors, and then for the next few days we'll be putting together both the detailed budget for the finance committee, and then you will receive a summary budget a little bit farther down the line after this goes through the process of being vetted by the finance committee. They're going to be reviewing a lot of the items from the program plan and the CIP that were submitted by the agency directors, and many thanks to Adam for doing a continual walkthrough with us this particular budget season to make sure that we bring a budget to you that might be a little more palatable than maybe the last few. I know that there have been some large items that have gone through the budget in the process. We are very aware and very mindful of a lot of your feedback as we vetted last year's budget and going into our early preparation stages for this budget. So I look forward to your comments on that. The very first meeting will be September 10. That's the first budget hearing, and I will be kicking it off at 8 o'clock. So first up will be the administration budget for the COG, and then a number of the reserves that we are responsible for as we go through that. The Finance Committee will meet after on September 19. So our meeting is a little bit later, but it will follow 3 of the budget meetings, after which the Finance Committee will be able to give us some feedback before we deliver a final product to you. So if you have any questions, please do reach out to me, and we'll be very busy getting that ready for you over the next week. Thank you.
Thank you. And Christy?
Very brief. So we have a green light from Ferguson Township. So thank you, Centrise and her staff, for working through plan review comments. It is in the hands right now of Stahl Schaefer Engineering. They are working through their side of things to get comments wrapped up, and we'll provide you updates at the next meeting, hoping we've got some better news. And I also want to throw in there, we are hoping to plan a grand opening at Millbrook Marsh sometime in October. Those dates will be released roughly October 22nd or 24th are 2 dates that we're looking at. So hold those dates on your calendar.
Christy, I got a question.
Yes.
Whitehall Road Regional Park, when will that be open for use, for full use?
Well, that hinges on Stahl Schaefer's quick turnaround on their comments, and that's the point we're in right now in the project.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Yep.
We're almost there.
We're almost, okay. I actually had a question about that from a constituent in Ferguson Township. Okay, moving on. Authority boards and committees reports, executive committee.
Did you want to mention SPPA or want me to do that?
It's a memorandum of record. You don't need to.
No.
It's up to you.
I guess I don't have anything further to add then.
Okay. Finance committee, Mr. Frank.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would just reference again, as Ms. McMullen said, the 2025 budget review sessions start September 10th. As shown on memorandum of record H, they continue on the 12th and the 17th with our wrap up on the 19th. All are welcome, and they will be televised as for the past several years.
Human Resources Committee.
Nothing further to add in there. We did talk extensively about that unpaid leave policy, which more to come.
Thank you.
Did somebody ask me online? Or
The hot mic.
that Suton had,
Thanks, Jerry.
You're welcome. I hope I didn't steal your thunder.
You did not.
Okay. I had shared your name.
Okay, Parks Capital Committee.
nothing else to report.
Public Safety Committee.
Nothing to report, other than what we've discussed tonight with the budget amendment.
Facilities Committee. Facilities Committee.
Eric? I can try.
If Eric is gone, I can have nothing more to report than what's in the agenda.
Thank you, Patty. Land Use and Community Infrastructure Committee. Okay. Climate Action and Sustainability Committee.
I've again been instructed to say there's nothing to add to the report.
Thank you.
Question. Just about that. I've been getting a lot of questions about the trash cans. And will we be getting updates on the numbers of people that have reserved their trash can, their bin size or their cart size, so that we know who to start pinging in our neighborhoods?
I'd ask Mike Tilka to come forward to the podium and maybe give a quick reply.
Yeah. I actually don't have a number for you yet. Shelley did give me a preliminary one a few days ago, but I'm happy to provide an update through Scott in the coming days.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And there was a video filmed earlier today, so I am now trending on Facebook with
You're
trash
viral.
cans, and you'll see other methods of communication going out. We have a whole outreach plan over the next month.
Great.
Thank you.
It's as if you read my mind. I was just thinking about that today. Like, I need to do some publicity.
Okay, Parks and Recreation Governance Special Committee did not meet. SCLO Center Library, SCLO Center Region Library Board. Thank you. Center Region Parks and Recreation Authority. Thank you. And Emergency Management Council, it says was canceled and there were no agenda items. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Go ahead, Josh.
Matters of record. The matters of record.
Yes.
The next agenda item. The agenda item, or matter of record, item N, I just want to say that I think we should bring up as a COG discussion the process that which there is $153,000 of incurred, not committed, or paid expenses for the solar power purchase agreement. I have considerable concerns about that, and I think that this general forum should discuss that in full before we talk about this. I mean,
I agree with you. I think others do in the room.
I mean, as a law student and people who you have billable hours,
And
these are billable paid hours.
I have extreme concerns about that, and I think other people do as well. There's a meeting on Wednesday, the 28th of the working group, and the latest information is going to be presented there. Of course, it's a meeting that you're welcome to attend. I certainly will be attending, and I hope we can ask and answer some hard questions there. My main concern has been, how did money get committed without prior approval or even budgeting, of the governing boards that make up the entities that participate in the program? So I think that's what we're looking for, is the information, what happened.
Yeah.
And then I think we need to examine it from that point forward.
Right.
And, it's a tough issue, and I think we're going to have to,
I
we're
just
going to have that
the
discussion here
yeah.
at some
Yeah.
point. So,
Yeah, if I may, just for
ahead,
clarity, the executive committee did discuss this issue, and given the fact that the working group is going to be meeting on the 28th, at which time all of the information, this universe of information is going to be made available, the executive committee determined that it would be best to wait at least until the next general forum meeting to have that discussion that you identified.
Okay, I'm glad there's gonna be a discussion item, that's all I just wanted to say.
And I might just add, there's a lot of information we're speaking about.
Yeah.
These contracts are very complicated and extensive and elaborate. And I think it's gonna have to take some time for people to be able to digest the latest information that's out there. So, you know, I don't think we should rush through this process, because apparently everything's changed. I don't know what you spend $200,000 on unless some significant change has occurred. So with that, I'll just leave it at that, and
Yep.
we will, again, the meeting of the working groups Wednesday at 9 a.m. It is at the Park Forest Middle School. Panorama, I'm sorry, Panorama School. And I'm going to be there. I encourage anyone else that is concerned to be there
What time?
at 9 a.m. Okay. Let's see here.
Motion to adjourn?
There are a lot of matters of record, but I'll go to the last agenda item. I'm sorry, did we have a
I
question?
made a motion to adjourn. Maybe it was.
You made a motion? I didn't even get there yet.
I know you didn't.
Do I hear a second? Okay, we're adjourned.
Recording stopped.